Yeah, absolutely. And when you're doing it live, the concentration level is quite intense, which I'd struggle with to a certain extent, you know. But that's, you know, that's the way it is. So there's a hell of a lot of influences. You know, I've mentioned Ry Cooder and Jimi Hendrix and Freddie King and B.B. King and Albert King.
You've literally listed all of my favorite things.
Well, I could go on, you know. I mean, I'm sure we hit the same. You know, I love listening to the old Bob Wills and his Texas Playboy stuff. Yeah. You know, listen to Noel Boggs and, you know, people like that playing. And let me ask you this: was it weird? Was it different being from the UK? That because we revere, you know, Clapton and Peter Green and Jeff Beck and, you know, and Jimmy Page and, you know, and then later, you know, Mark Knopfler and Albert Lee and all these different guys. Was it weird different from the UK, or just like, oh, those guys, I'd rather listen to the real thing? Or was there also the reverence for these guys as well? I'm sure you probably bumped shoulders with a lot of these guys just being around the scene. Am I right? Or how? Yeah, I mean, I played with Eric a few months ago, actually, but not that we're great friends or anything. And we played together a couple of times. But never really hooked up. We did this big gig for a cancer charity at the beginning of March.
Okay.
And I was in the house band, and I played with everybody. You know, I played with, you know, I did some of the stuff I played with John Illsley anyway, which is Dire Straits. I played with Eric and played with Paul Young. Did it? Tom Jones. I was in Tom's band for a while, so that was pretty. But I can't remember where we started.
I was going to say, how were they as influences?
Well, Eric Clapton was a huge influence. I mean, probably, you know, from Disraeli Gears and from the first Blind Faith album, the only Blind Faith album.
Right.
The first, you know, that Blind Faith album, Had to Cry Today, and you know, which is, I think, the opening track. And, you know, I used to jam along to that.
Right.
When I was at home, you know, I had a little back room that my mum and dad sort of gave me. It was a very small room with my record player. And didn't have a stereo, actually. We didn't get a stereo until I was about 17. I had a record player, which I could put down. If you put a long player on, you could put it down to 16. And so you could learn a lick at half speed, an octave down, obviously, but at half speed. So that was actually quite useful. So I think I was quite lucky in that respect. But I used to jam along to that, and then later on, I used to jam along to, you know, as I said, the Crusaders, and you know, I learned the solo in the solo on Kid Charlemagne.
Yep, absolutely.
Note for note when I was about, I don't know, when was that, 74, 75?
Yeah.
So I would have been 17, 18, you know. So, and Frank, you know, listen to Frank Zappa. I'm still a big Zappa fan.
Same here.
I couldn't even begin to play the guitar like Frank Zappa did, but you know, some of those lines that he would come up with in his solos, you know, like the solo in Inca Roads, I still think is one of the greatest guitar solos ever.
Yes.
You know, fucking amazing. You know,
well, that whole era, but that was my favorite.
When he went diddly diddly, I can't do it, but you know.
Yeah, I like that out of phasey thing he would do. He'd get those kind of like pinch harmonic-y things like he would do that sounded awesome on that SG. Like Live at the Roxy and Elsewhere is one of my all-time favorites. And
me too. Have you seen the video stuff from that?
Oh yeah.
You know, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
You can see from that where he's done the edits for the record, because there's a version of, I think the version of on the film, the version of Penguin in Bondage has a different solo. It's the same track, but he's edited in a different solo. with that neutron biphase and maybe with the wah-wah or something. That's one hell of a sound. I don't know how. Yeah. I know he used a biphase and a wah-wah, but I think he's using both on that, right?
Right. Awesome.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I saw Zappa twice, actually. I saw him with the Zoot Allures band. So there's a 5-piece with Terry Bozzio.
Yeah.
And then I saw him with the Shake Your Booty band. So there's about 9 of them. Yeah, with Adrian Ballou.
Right.
Patrick O'Hearn. Different drummer. I think maybe Chad Wackerman.
That could be,
drums. Yeah.
Yeah, I only saw him once. I saw him in 1984. He played at the Wisconsin State Fair, of all places. And let's just say he was having fun with farm animal type of illusions and things of this.
Right.
And allusions to cheese and things you can do with cheese. So it was quite amusing.
He was great, wasn't he? He was pretty amazing, that guy.
Absolutely. I was thinking there's one note in that Trouble Every Day live at the Roxy and elsewhere. He bends the note. It's like my single favorite note in the history of rock.
All right.
But yeah, I'm a huge Zappa fan.
I think Roxy and Elsewhere is I think it's one of my favorite albums, actually. And I'll tell you, you've probably got it, but towards the end of that tour, the same band, he did a series of albums called You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the second one or the third one of that is called the Helsinki Concerts. And of course, it's the same band, but they play everything so much. They've been playing it on the whole tour. You know, with Pygmy Twilight and Cheapness, all that stuff.
Yeah.
They play it at breakneck speed, and it's absolutely. But he does whipping post on it as well.
Oh yes, because someone said play whipping post.
Yeah, some Finnish guy keeps shouting whipping post out from the audience. Oh. So he plays, and when he does Montana, he does. Instead of saying "and take me to Montana," where the dental floss grows or something, he says, "and tie me to the whipping post and whip the out of me" or something. Something like that. It's funny though.
One of my favorite parenting success stories is that all my kids are Zappa fiends, especially my 2 old ones. And one of the first concerts my son wanted to go to was Zappa Plays Zappa. And and we went to the show and they opened up with A Kid in His Arf and we were just like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. Was
that with Dweezil, right?
Yep. And then Dweezil and I got to be buddies, and I sat in with them when they were in Minneapolis last year. We're talking about doing something at some point. So hopefully when this pestilence is over, I'll be able to do something with Dweezil, because that would be fun.
How he does that line, is it that fast line in one of the St. Alfonso's or something like that?
St. Alfonso's.
Yeah, but there's a long kind of instrumental section which he plays on guitar.
Yes.
Maybe with the on Zappa's version with the marimba as well.
Right.
But it's just insane. I mean, I don't know how he plays that. I really don't.
Yeah, those lines are insane.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. But
yeah, it was interesting when I saw them and they were playing. It's just so weird with Zappa, where you can have, a dozen records and consider yourself a fan. You know what I mean? And then you realize that ain't. He's got so many more on top of it, and you hear these tunes. You're like, what is that song? One of them, when they were playing, they played "Sleep Dirt," and I had never heard Sleep Dirt before. And I was like, what is that awesome ballad with the weird changes? Oh, that's Sleep Dirt. And I was like, well, next thing you know, I got that Sleep Dirt record, and it's one of my favorites. I had no idea it even existed. So there's so many things, that old Son of Orange County theme. Yeah.
no, I don't believe
it. Yeah.
You know, that stuff just kills me, you know, and that's of course on I love that little orchestral bit on what's the album I'm thinking of? Just another band from LA. I can't remember. But there's snippets from Lumpy Gravy, from the orchestral stuff from Lumpy Gravy.
Oh, okay.
They're just beautiful, you know. I mean, the guy was a genius, you know.
He was indeed, and a workaholic.
Really,
I think he just was working ceaselessly.
Yeah.